My fiance and I are planning to get married late this year. We had a small, rough budget for our wedding. It's a small wedding with only about 30 guests, and it'll be hosted on a family friend's property. We've been making the decorations ourselves, doing online RSVPs, and ordering our cake from Costco. As a trade-off, my fiance and I would be going on a very expensive honeymoon. I left my fiance to buy her wedding dress because I thought she'd be mature enough to stay within our budget. I found out she spent $10,000 on a dress she would wear once. She argued that it was her dream wedding dress and that she had compromised on having an ugly wedding for me. I had no idea she felt that way because she never expressed it. She says she can afford the dress, but we can't afford it. We don't even have a house yet. We can't afford both the dress and the honeymoon trip, and I'm sure the dress was custom made and can't be returned. I immediately canceled our honeymoon trip. It was booked through an agency, and we had insurance, so we only lost out on $250 each. If we had to wait any longer, canceling would have been a lot pricier. When she found out I had canceled the honeymoon, she got very angry. She said I had no right to cancel it, and if I didn't fix it, she would go on the honeymoon alone. The wedding party has weighed in, and her friends are mercilessly hammering me about it. Even her dad is mad at me. My friends and family are on my side. Am I the idiot? Edit. It was paid through her savings. We're splitting the honeymoon. We didn't explicitly discuss a dress budget, but given we've been trying to make everything low cost, and we definitely can't afford a $10K dress, I assume she'd be reasonable about it. She's never done anything wildly irresponsible like this. She means to use her savings and paychecks to rebook the honeymoon or go on her own trip. I wonder if she will actually do this. What I know is that this will leave her paycheck to paycheck regardless, and with a big fat credit card bill if she goes on a honeymoon. OP, maybe you guys should pause on the wedding. There's a significant dispute on finances. $10,000 is a lot, especially if you're trying to save money. Everyone's the idiot here. You guys need to get on the same page regarding finances. Clearly, she's willing to spend more money than you. You really need to get aligned on finances. OP, not the idiot. You can't afford this honeymoon anymore since the money's gone in the dress. Tell everyone who's jumping on you about canceling the honeymoon that since she spent $10K on a dress, they can help pitch in to pay for it. You'll book the trip again once the donations reach at least $10,000. Until then, it's off. Your fiancé is either selfish or financially irresponsible. I kind of have the feeling you won't have to worry about the wedding or the honeymoon. Unless you have the wealth not to discuss a $10,000 dress. Who in their right mind would even think they'd need to say not to spend $10,000 on a dress? And it feels like she hid it. I'm sure there were plenty of wedding discussions. How do you accidentally forget to mention you're spending $10,000 for some fabric? That's the thing. Even financially okay people wouldn't spend $10K on a dress. My best friend's was $3K, and I remember how much she was fretting over whether that amount was reasonable because it was so high. If you're getting a Costco cake, you're not getting a $10,000 dress. She's kind of dogging this guy for not specifying a budget, but it shouldn't have to be stated that you should not drain nearly every penny you have on a dress. And she knew that. She used it as a loophole. Seriously problematic spending. I really don't blame him for canceling. I'd be seriously reconsidering this marriage. I'll start by saying my sister hosts a dinner party at her house every week, every Saturday. We're not from America, but our kids were born here, so they enjoy pizza and burgers. I usually don't want to come empty-handed, so I always ask my sister if I could bring pizza for her kids. She always agrees and has no issue with it. I've noticed her daughter avoids eating any of it, and whenever I ask her if she's going to take some, she always responds with, "I don't eat processed junk." Her mother is aware of her saying this, but never corrects her behavior. This is the reason I always ask her mother if it's okay to bring it. And yesterday, I mentioned that her daughter doesn't seem to like pizza. She says it's fine to bring it anyway. Yesterday, the same thing occurred. I offered her once again, and she made the rude comment. This time, however, my son responded to her. He told my niece that she could go eat grass like cows if she was so healthy. Other kids were laughing, and some adults mentioned how the little kid was protecting his mother. This resulted in my niece crying, and her mother took her to the side. The entire dinner night passed, with my sister not saying anything until after. She calls me and says that I should have made my son apologize for his insult. At this point, I'm also irritated, and I tell her that the past few times, her daughter's made rude and unwanted comments right in front of her, and she's done nothing to correct them. She then says that her daughter's never made my son cry and embarrassed her in front of everyone. My parents agree that my sister must correct her daughter's behavior. Info. So why do you keep asking exactly? And why do you need protection from a kid who doesn't want to eat your pizza? Seems like you're taking this a little personally, don't you think? Also, it sounds like she's picked those phrases up from her parents. Is this really about you and your sister by any chance? You are the idiot. Leave your niece alone. You bring pizza every week. Every week you ask her to take some. Every week she says no. Stop asking. Let her eat what she wants. She hasn't told you to stop eating it or made any comments not in response to your harassment. The only reason your son made a mean comment was because of your inability to accept that you should have no opinion over your niece's eating habits. Apologize to your niece and let it go. I find it wild that OP and her sister are arguing over your kid should be punished for saying that, but the kids are clearly just echoing the words they heard come out of their mommy's mouth. OP, take this up with your sister and leave the kids out. Your son didn't create that sentence on his own. He heard it from somewhere. You should stop teaching your son to think it's acceptable to make others feel bad about their own food choices. Denise says, I don't eat processed trash. The equivalent thing for your son to say is, I don't eat nasty vegetables. How would you feel if your niece looked at your son and called him a garbage-eating lard, and then everyone in the room laughed at him? It's messed up, right? Well, that's what just happened to your niece. I was flying from Melbourne to Dubai. I paid for a premium economy seat because it was a 14-hour flight and I wanted to be comfortable. The person in the next seat had been upgraded, and they asked if I could switch seats with their wife, as they had just gotten married and were in their honeymoon. I congratulated him on his nuptials and asked where his wife was sitting. He pointed towards the back of the plane in economy. I declined to switch seats. He asked if there was any way to convince me. I offered to switch if he paid the difference between the seats. It was a good amount. I had been lucky to get mine at a decent price. It would have only cost him 1,000 Australian dollars. He said that they were on a budget for their honeymoon. I congratulated once again and put in my earbuds. He muttered that I was an idiot. I said he was an idiot for taking the upgrade instead of either sitting with his wife or giving it to her. I told my wife about the incident, and she thinks I should have done the nice thing. For the record, she hates flying in economy, so I know she wouldn't have switched. Not the idiot at all. People who do this kind of thing are so crappy. Him trying to guilt trip you by telling you he was on his honeymoon was supposed to mean what exactly? Why were he and his wife entitled to a 1K gift from a stranger at the last minute? So they planned to take the upgrade and try to trick whoever was sitting there? They played themselves. He said that they were on a budget for their honeymoon. What does this have to do with the price of peas? Their poor planning is not your emergency. They should have rejected the upgrade if they wanted to be sure they sat together. Oh, his poor new wife, ditched on the way to their honeymoon. If he really wanted to sit with his wife, I'm sure the person beside her would have loved an upgrade to premium economy. He was essentially asking you to pay for his wife's upgrade. As a seasoned flyer from Australia who also works in aviation, I smell a rat. Presumably they booked together. They could have pleaded their case when the upgrade was processed, either by contacting the airline before the day of flying or in person at the airport. I bet they booked separately, so she couldn't be considered, or he has some kind of status with the airline. And I'd also bet that the newlywed yarn was just made up for sympathy. He didn't have to take the upgrade, and you are not to blame for his selfishness and lack of planning. I was adopted by the people I consider my real parents when I was 7. My biological father is my adopted mother's brother, and she adopted my sister and me from him because he's a nut job. We were all raised with the knowledge that we were adopted. If I'm being honest, The notion of adoption isn't really a thing in my culture, as biological parenthood is very important. Families will just take in a child from an incompetent relative and raise them alongside their own children, but the child is always aware of who their biological parents are. The biological parents are usually involved as well, but aren't the child's primary guardians, and the child usually goes back to their biological parents once they're more stable. My younger brother, nearly adult, is a little idiot, and he got his ex-girlfriend pregnant. Furthermore, he cheated on her, and she wants nothing to do with him. She figured out she was pregnant too late to get a termination, and her parents wouldn't let her travel to get one. She wants nothing to do with my brother and our family, and I can't blame the poor girl. Initially, my mother was going to take the baby and raise it, but obviously, considering how things are done in my culture, my mother was expecting my brother's ex to be involved. Even when my mother promised to let her sign over parental responsibility and move on, she just didn't seem genuine about it. The ex-girlfriend decided to just speak to an adoption agency and adopt the baby out externally, which upset my mom. As you probably guessed why, blood is very important to her. My husband and I have been struggling to conceive, so I offered to take the baby, but I explained that I would only do it if it was a real adoption, not like how my culture does it, where I'd just be raising the baby for my brother. I made it clear that the baby wasn't a toy to be passed around, and that I wouldn't be giving the child back when my brother finally gets his crap together in 15 years. My brother's ex was happy with this arrangement, and we've been in the process of getting the paperwork started. Everyone in the family is angry. They think I'm being unnecessarily difficult by going against our cultural conventions just because I'm infertile and want a baby. My mother thinks that I'm being selfish because I was basically raised in the way that I'm refusing to raise this child in, and I'm being hypocritical. She thinks I should raise the child with the knowledge of who their real parents are, which is something I'd share with them anyway when the time is right, and allow my brother to learn to be a father. I don't think I'm the idiot. Still, given the cultural perspective and the nature of my own upbringing, I'm starting to think I may be a bit hypocritical. Not the idiot. A child is not a toy to be passed around. If little bro wanted to learn to be a parent, he can learn now. Do not let them badger you into compromising on this. It's a hill to die on, in my opinion. The long-term effects of parental abandonment are magnified when a parent is lackadaisically involved, setting up a child for self-confidence and self-esteem issues, along with a whole host of other problems. If he wants to parent, he learns how, or allow someone equipped and prepared to raise that child. What's best for him isn't what's best for the baby. Sorry, not sorry. You've given the bio/birth mother an option she's willing to consider. This has nothing to do with your family's cultural traditions. The bio mother wants none of that. You're not being hypocritical. Your brother's too young and immature to step up now and be the parent this child will need. You're not being difficult for not wanting to invest your time, energy, and money into raising a child as your own, only to have your brother suddenly decide they're in a good place to take them away from you. Nope, the adoption process is what it is, for reasons just like this. Good luck going forward. My husband, Jake, 30, and I, 27 female, recently welcomed our first baby, Emma, who's now a few months old. As most new parents know, it's been a challenging time, filled with sleepless nights and endless diaper changes. I'm on maternity leave, so I'm home with Emma all day, but I still need help from Jake, especially during the night. Jake works from home and is a huge gamer. He spends most of his free time playing online games with his friends. I've tried to be understanding and give him space, but it's been hard when he refuses to help with Emma at night. I've asked him multiple times to take turns getting up with her, but he's always too tired, or that he has an important game. Breastfeeding has been a challenge. Emma often struggles to latch properly, leading to painful and sometimes cracked nipples. I've had mastitis twice already, which leaves me feeling feverish and in intense pain. Despite seeing me in pain, Jake just laughs it off, finding it amusing. He never offers to help during these moments, even though I'm visibly struggling and desperate for support. One night, I'd had enough after I'd been up with Emma for the third time, and Jake was still glued to his computer. I went into his office and asked him to take over so I could get some sleep. He waved me off, saying he was in the middle of a game and that I should just handle it. He added, "You're on maternity leave and free all day while I have to work, so I need time to relax. You're just sitting around doing nothing all day anyway." I was exhausted and on the verge of tears. I needed his help, but he was completely dismissive. Frustrated and desperate, I walked over to the router and turned off the Wi-Fi. That's when Jake completely lost it. He stormed out of his office screaming at me. Apparently, he and his friends were in some online tournament, and they were about to win when I unplugged the Wi-Fi. He called me selfish and irresponsible and accused me of sabotaging his one form of relaxation. He said that I had no right to interfere with his me time and that I should have just waited until he was done. I calmly explained that I needed help and that our baby was more important than his game. He refused to listen and continued to criticize me, adding that I haven't even been having intimacy with him and that we've only had it 4 times since Emma was born. He accused me of wanting to take everything away from him while doing nothing all day and sitting at home on my butt. Jake never helps during the day, even after he finishes work at 5 p.m. I don't expect him to help during work hours, but once he's off, he should step up as a parent. Instead, he goes straight to his game, leaving me to handle everything alone. Since then, he's been sulking around the house, barely speaking to me. To make matters worse, his friends have been sending me nasty messages, calling me a crazy wife, and saying I'm unreasonable. One even suggested that Jake leave me because I'm too demanding. I feel like I'm losing my mind here, just trying to get a bit of support. I'm exhausted, and all I wanted was for Jake to step up and be a parent too. Instead, I'm being painted as the villain for wanting help with our newborn. Am I the idiot? As soon as he brought up the lack of intimacy, it showed who he was. If you told him you wanted it, he would stop gaming when he came home. This has to do with you not catering to his needs. You need to really think about if you want your daughter to be raised in a house where her father mistreats her mother. Remember that kids learn what's acceptable behavior in relationships by watching what their parents do. Is this the kind of relationship that you would want your daughter to have? Saturday morning, put some milk bottles in the fridge, put the baby on Jake's chest, and walk out the door. Come back 8 hours later and ask him how sitting around on his butt all day was. Forewarn the mother-in-law that this is happening so she doesn't come and rescue him. Yeah, that's a bad idea. A friend tried that once. She came back to a baby in the car seat all day. The baby hadn't been fed or changed and had a bleeding diaper rash for a week after. After that, getting full physical and legal custody was a breeze, but I swear it changed the baby. He was never quite the same. Oh my goodness, that's horrifying. I was going to say something about how I wouldn't trust him for that long and maybe try for an hour, but then I caught myself because that's not normal. If she can't trust him to watch the baby for an hour, let alone 8, then he shouldn't be a parent. OP, this is one of those times when someone tells you who they are, and you should listen. He doesn't care about you or the baby. It doesn't get better from here. He will not snap out of it and just become a loving father. He will neglect you and your baby until he sucked the life force from you, and you're left wondering who you are.